Hello everyone, welcome to this tutorial. In today's tutorial we'll be making a basic form using React. Also in this tutorial we'll be using React hooks along with functional components. So let's get going. So guys, I open up Visual Studio Code and let's get started creating the form. So I will cd into my VS Code projects directory, and I can simply use the command npx create react app, and we can call it, I don't know, react form or something. So this command usually takes a while, so I will see you guys when it's done. Great, so I've opened my code in VS Code and we're ready to get started here. So the first thing I want to do is I don't want to use yarn, I'd rather use npm, so we can remove everything yarn related for this project. So I can run rm-rf yarn.lock to remove that, and I can also run rm-rf the entire node modules folder to remove everything from there and do a fresh install. And then we can go ahead and run npm install to install everything from scratch using npm. Right, so my npm install has finished. Usually takes a while to install everything, so we can get started. We can open this source folder, and to begin with I want to delete app.css, app.test.js, the logo, and set up test.js, just because we don't need any of those. Oh, and index.css. We're not going to be doing any styling in today's video, just simple React form stuff. So we can come into app.js and delete everything inside the div. There we are. And this class name. And since we deleted both of these files, we don't need them. We can delete them from here. Right, so to start off with, I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it form.js. And I'm going to import React from React in here. Oh, not that. And then I'm going to have a functional component, so it's going to be called form, open and close brackets. It's going to have, let's just say, it's going to return back to us just a div saying hello for now. And we need to export this as well. Just remember to export it, and then I just formatted the code right there by pressing the command Shift, Alt, and F. So that was before, Shift, Alt, F, and everything is just a bit tidier, I think, in the code. So we can come to our app.js and we can import the code. We can import form.js by saying import form from /form, which is saying import essentially this file which lives in the same directory as app.js, and we can reference the form in app.js so that it will show up, I suppose. And one other thing that I forgot to do was we need to head over to index.js. We no longer use index.css as we no longer have it, so it makes sense to delete it as well. And what we can do as well is just test if everything's okay by starting the app by running npm start, just to see if everything we've done so far is a-okay. And we get back hello, which is exactly what we want, which is great. So we can start making the form, essentially. Let's go. Right, so a form in React is slightly different from a form in regular JavaScript because all of the state is managed by React, and it kind of throws errors if all the state isn't managed by React. So we can kind of come in here and declare a div, and inside the div we can have a form component as you would in any JavaScript or HTML form. And inside the form we can have a label just to say, I don't know, for example, the username. So after the username, we can have a break field just so we can have everything nice and even, and then our input field. So our input field, we can close it first of all. What is it going to be? It's going to have a type of text. It's going to have a value of something. We know that it's going to have a value of something for now, but we haven't defined anything right now. And we want it to do something on change. So whenever the value inside changes, we want something to happen. So in order to set the value and have it do something on change, we need to use state, which is a React hook, and also very useful for when we need to work with forms. So I can go in here and create a state. Let's call it username and set username. So we set the state, and we want to set the initial state just to an empty string. So this is username and this is set username. So we want the value, the input value, to initially be the username field, and on change we want to have an input which will be an event. This will be an arrow function, and what will we do? We will set the user name to be the event.target.value, and this is really what this is. It's just whatever's inside the input field. So whatever you type in is equal to event.target.value. Right, so that should be good to go. We'll create another break tag just to make everything look nice and formatted. Copy paste this label here, and we'll have a password field. So for anyone who wants to create a password, we'll have a password, and then we'll have another input field. Make that self-closing. Right, so the type is going to be password. Having the type as password will just mean that when you go to type in the password, obviously you won't see anything, you'll just see those black dots that you'd normally see when you type in a password. We want the value to be something, and we want the on change to be something as well. So just like the username, we want to set something as the password. So we can copy the username, and how I quickly copied it using VS Code was I pressed Shift Alt and the down key, and I think on a Mac it's Shift Control or Shift Option and downward key. It's one of those. We can rename this to password. Can rename this one to set password. Right there, and then set the value to password. And then just like here where we have the username field, we can literally just copy paste over and change this variable to set password. And there we are. So we have the username field and the password field. And lastly, I think I forgot to include a breakpoint just to make it look a bit better. So one more breakpoint, and then lastly what we can do is we can include a submit form button. So that will just be a button, and then what's the type of the button? Well, it's going to be a submit. So we can just say over here, submit your form. So if we go back to our browser, what does it look like? So you can see the labels. We have username, password, we have input. We can type everything, so everything works fine. So username, password, except this button will not lead you anywhere. I just get a LastPass pop up, but it doesn't really do anything for now. So we can go back in here and handle the form. So what do we want the form to do after you've pressed the submit form button? Well, we can handle this by doing a on submit on the form tag. So we can equal that to a function called I don't know, submit form or something. We can call it submit form, and here we can define the form. We can say const submit form equals an arrow function, and one important thing to have in here is the event, just like we did here. And the reason for that is when you submit the form, the page will automatically reload, which is something that we don't want at the moment, because we want to display our results for us to see what we've got. So what we can do is we can come in here and say e.prevent default, like so. Sorry, not e, event. I'm used to writing e, but I thought I'd just spell it out just because it's not obvious when people say e over here. So that stops the form from refreshing whenever you press the submit button. And what we can do is we can come in here and we can console.log all of our data that we have. So we can say something like the username is, and we can have the username show, and we can say and the password is, and we can have the password show. And if we hit Shift, Alt and F to reformat it a bit so everything looks nice and neat, we can just display whatever we got from the form. So here we are. So if I enter a name as Bob and have a password as Bob and submit the form, if I go to inspect console, you will see that the username is Bob and the password is Bob. Ignore these errors. These are some LastPass errors, I believe. So that's that. That is the form. So if I were to come in here and change this, just literally type random letters, you can see the username and password field match up. So with this, after you have the information, you can do whatever you want with the form. You can pass it into another component in React and use that form to validate something else. There are a whole bunch of options. You can then, fetch or call an API from here if you wanted to search for something from this data. You can add more columns, you can add more fields like username, password, age, type of pet, anything you want really. And this was just an example that yes, your state of whatever you stored inside the input fields for the username and the password is stored inside, if I come back in here, these two variables, the username and the password, using setState. So yeah, that is the end of the tutorial. A very quick tutorial on React Forms. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment down below if there's anything you want me to cover next, or if you want to see me progress with this form and do something with it, maybe make a API call. Comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.